Two of my best friends and I had come home later after seeing a horror movie at the theater. I think it was The Grudge. We were still in the zone to get scared, so we stayed up longer to look up ghost videos. I heard the fridge door close. The kitchen was practically connected to my room, so it was weird to not only hear it close and not open, especially when I didn't hear anyone walking around, so I went to check. The basement door was wide open, which was weird because it was always closed and locked. I got freaked out. I closed it, I locked it, and then I told my friends, and we got knives and started walking around the house to see if we can find anyone. Nothing showed up. After clearing the house, we were back in my room, watching other stuff for about an hour or so, and it's close to 3 a.m. at this point. Then I heard the back door handle rattle. This was normal, since that's what my cat would do if it wanted to go outside. I walked up to the kitchen doorway but saw no cat at the door, so I walked a little closer and confirmed there wasn't one. It wasn't under the kitchen table. That's when I looked at the basement door. It wasn't open. There was smoke billowing up from underneath. I woke my parents up. We called the fire department. Everyone got out. Nothing burned out, and nothing burned down. All was well. The smoke came from the furnace in the basement. A fire started inside, and the house was filling with carbon dioxide and smoke. Apparently, neither of the defectors were working, and if we hadn't been up fucking around, 5 people would have died in their sleep that night. This is just scary to think how easily we all could have died. I was about 4 years old or so, around the year 2000. My parents had flown to Australia for a holiday, and we went to Steve Irwin's zoo. One of the crocodile enclosures had bleachers that were still being built, so there was a huge ring of spike fencing in a semi-circle on the ground out of the back of them, the highest point. My parents sat us on the second highest level of the bleachers, and there was one man behind us taking photos. The dude leaned back to get a snapshot over thin air and fell onto the spikes. He was impaled through the torso. I didn't see the aftermath of it directly as my dad covered my eyes, but I remember my mom coming back after helping the guy, and her arms and shirt were drenched in blood. I think a close second, it sent me into hysterics, was seeing my dad try to beat the living shit out of 2 of his friends who claimed he was molesting me in New York 2012. He wasn't, and he later told me that one of them had been in court for sleeping with underage girls from the Philippines, so they were projecting. Everyone there was drunk, and I had never seen my dad be violent like that before. All I remember now is seeing him raising a wine bottle over his head like he was gonna smash someone's brains in. So many people screaming at them to stop. When I was coming home from school with my mom one time, we witnessed a hit-and-run accident. 3 teenagers were on the road bleeding. 2 girls and 1 boy, I think. Honestly, I don't really remember. This was in front of a busy shopping mall. I don't remember what happened to them all after that, but I do remember that a local news station made coverage about the accident. I witnessed an accident without realizing it. I was heading home from work at 4:45 a.m., and at one point a semi-truck cuts me off and I see another car on the shoulder. I get home and I go to bed. When I woke up around 8 hours later, my mom told me about a fatality in which a vehicle hit someone attempting to run across the highway, which is divided and 6 lanes across. When I went by, it was early enough that the cops and paramedics hadn't even gotten there yet.
So, your memory is now processing it, right? Do you mind if I share your story?
I never saw the person who got hit, but the part that got me was that if I had been 5 minutes earlier, I probably would have been the one who hit that person. And sure, why not? You can totally share it with the world. But why would you want to do that?
Well, these are my reasons. Your story is interesting, it's real. I just do it for the fun of it. I'm inspired by Corp's husband, the deep-voiced, charismatic YouTuber. Real stories are a bit more interesting than fiction.
Okay. Oh, cool. Well, I guess I just never thought of it as interesting. I know that my mom almost had a heart attack when she first looked at the news because there was a story of a fatal accident on the road that I was on when I would have been coming home. She actually checked to see if I was up in my bed sleeping.
It's okay if you don't really consider it interesting. Perhaps you think of it as an anecdote, but for a third party like me, this is a story and I can learn from it and enjoy it.
Oh, that's actually awesome. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I'm actually surprised anyone even saw my post since I posted it way later than when the thread started. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Things like this make you realize how breakable and fragile life can be, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It really does make you realize that.
Were you able to see the body? I know for a fact that when one sees such thing, one is never the same afterwards.
Oh, well, to be honest, no, I didn't. I did not see the body. That would have been on the roadway, right on the surface. It was dark that early in the morning, and I was more focused on the semi truck that was suddenly moving into my lane. I was in high school riding around with a friend a year or two older than me, so I felt super cool. I was having a great time. We were laughing and joking. We were heading to a friend's house. On the way there, you had to pass under an overpass for a big freeway. I'm talking about something 5 stories up. Someone jumped off the overpass. It was too high to tell if it was a man or a woman. I noticed it first and screamed, and my friend immediately covered my eyes with one hand so I wouldn't see them land, and pulled onto the side street so the overpass was behind us. He got out of the car and called the police from his cell phone, but I knew it was pointless. After that, we both drove in silence to our friend's house. Never forget things and deaths like this. So, I was 13 and spending the night at my neighborhood's friend's house. Her bed was up against the wall, below the window, which was near this big tree we used to climb during the summer. It was about 2 in the morning, and after some late night jiggles, we started drifting off to sleep. We woke up to a huge bang, which shook the window and the bed frame. We looked outside, and we started screaming. Someone had crashed their car into the tree. It was super dark out, so I couldn't see anything but the car wrapped around the tree. Her parents came in and we had to go sleep in the living room. I just couldn't sleep. Next morning, my adopted mom calls and tells me to come home. Turns out the person who crashed was my brother. I guess my adopted brother confessed his love to one of his close guy's friends, got rejected, got drunk, and tried to kill himself by crashing into that tree. He turned out okay, thankfully, but the thought of I could have heard my brother's death stuck with me. And I just can't forget about that. Then, this story happened to me around 16. My other adopted brother, let's call him A, started hearing voices. He was convinced people were under the house planning to kill him. It started off with him putting his ear to the floor and asking me and my other siblings if we could hear them and to record it. Being young, I recorded it for him, but it was just silence. He kept asking me to rewind the video over and over, asking me if I heard it too. My other brother, let's call him Jay, told my adopted mom that he was doing that, but she shrugged it off. It went on like this for about 2 days, and I knew it was bad, but nothing prepared me for what was about to happen. One night I saw my brother, A, frantically packing his bags and asked where he was going. He replied that his best friend, K, was there to pick him up. Well, K was actually out of state with her family, you know. I woke my mom up and we found A sitting in my other brother's car in the passenger seat with a pile of clothes on his lap, just staring out the windshield with his mouth open. My mom tried to convince him that K was out of state and that he was in P's cars, but it took us about an hour to get him inside. He seemed okay until the next night. He ended up taking all the knives from the kitchen and lining them up in the bathroom before running out of the door. I ran after him barefoot, but he was too fast. I remember crying in the middle of the street. I remember yelling at my mom to help him because she was just standing there doing nothing. Apparently, he was just jumping the neighbors' fences and running into people's backyards. I went back inside and I collapsed on my bed sobbing. I remember my mom on the phone with the police begging them not to shoot him. I remember sobbing even harder, thinking my brother was going to die, begging whatever holy presence that they wouldn't kill my brother. He ended up going to an inpatient psych ward where they diagnosed him with schizophrenia. He is right now on medication that helps. He is doing good now. He doesn't remember anything that happened, but I do, and vividly. I had a really fucked up childhood, and I could go on about all the messed up things I've seen growing up with an addict mom, to foster care, etc. But I'm healing from my traumas now. I'm in therapy and I finally found medication that works for my PD and PTSD. Mental illness is no joke. Mental illness can be terrifying. When I was 10 or so, we had to take a sharp left after a bridge to get to the road that led to my school. One time, there was this guy cycling when the school bus took the turn. He fell off his bicycle on the road in the path of oncoming traffic. Bus unfortunately ran him over and he died on the spot. Even though I didn't see it full on, I heard an odd crunch squelch. I don't know how else to describe that sound. I'm sorry. And there was a lot of blood. We learned later that one of the wheels ran over his head. or something like that. This traumatized me so much that for a long time, when we reached that turning point, I would stare unblinkingly, forcefully at my hands, and never look outside. I was afraid I would see his remains on the ground, even if it was months later. When I was about 17 or 18 years old, my dad and I were driving down the interstate when we saw a car on fire on the side of the road. We pulled over and got out to check to see if there was any way we can help. At first, we didn't see a single sign of anyone around until we got closer to the car. At first, we smelled the most horrific smell of burning flesh, and then we heard the blood-curdling screams of the people inside. The saddest part was, we also heard a baby crying inside too. So we started sprinting towards the car to help them out. We ended up getting the baby out, but the father and mother had died before we could get to them. The baby didn't make it either. He died in the hospital later from serious burning. To this day, no amount of therapy or counseling has helped me to get over the dread and guilt of not being able to get to them sooner. Not to mention the sight, the sound, and the smell of the whole experience.